The rain had just stopped when Emily Carter stepped out of the Boston train station, pulling her denim jacket closer around her shoulders as she scanned the busy street. The city always felt different after it rained, glossier, sharper, as if every streetlight and storefront had been polished by the storm. She had moved to Boston the previous month for a new job at a publishing company, chasing a dream she had held since she was a child, reading novels under her blanket with a flashlight. At 24, she was still learning the balance between ambition and loneliness. Moving states away from her family had taught her that dreams came with sacrifices, and sometimes the biggest one was the quietness that waited in her apartment every evening. That night, she was late for a company dinner, the kind where everyone smiled too widely and spoke in polished words. She hurried along the sidewalk, her heels tapping against wet concrete, when she collided with someone turning the corner. Her phone slipped from her hand and skidded across the pavement. The man she bumped into reacted quickly, bending down before she could. "I'm so sorry," he said, picking it up gently and brushing off the raindrops with his sleeve. Emily looked up and found herself staring into deep brown eyes, warm and surprisingly familiar for a stranger. He had a calm presence, something steady and reassuring that contrasted with the frantic pace of the city around them. "No, it's my fault," she replied, slightly embarrassed. "I wasn't watching where I was going." He handed her the phone. "Well, at least it survived." She smiled. "Unlike my dignity." He laughed, a soft and genuine sound. "I'm Daniel." "Emily," she said, adjusting the strap of her purse. "And I'm late for something I really don't want to go to." Daniel tilted his head. "Then maybe the universe did you a favor by slowing you down." She arched an eyebrow. "Are you saying getting almost knocked into a puddle is good luck?" "Hey, sometimes chaos brings interesting people together," he replied, a teasing smile on his lips. Emily felt a flutter in her chest. She rarely clicked with strangers this easily. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed, her coworker asking where she was. Emily sighed. "I really should go," she said reluctantly. Daniel pointed across the street. "I actually work just there. If you ever want coffee or want to complain about awkward corporate dinners, I'm usually around." She followed his finger to a cozy-looking cafe lit by warm yellow lights. She nodded, giving him a small wave before hurrying off. That night at the dinner, surrounded by polite conversations and clinking glasses, Emily found her thoughts drifting back to the man with the warm smile. When she returned to her apartment later, she realized she was smiling without meaning to. 2 days later, Emily stepped into the cafe Daniel had pointed out. The place smelled like fresh espresso and cinnamon. Wooden shelves lined the walls, filled with books and plants, and soft instrumental music played overhead. She ordered a latte and sat by the window, unsure whether she hoped Daniel would appear or not. As it turned out, she didn't need to wait long. "Well," Daniel said, walking over with a grin, "the universe works fast." Emily laughed. "Maybe it likes proving you right." He sat across from her, still wearing his work ID badge. She learned he was a software engineer who loved photography, that he had grown up in Boston, and that he came to this cafe every morning because it reminded him of his grandma's kitchen. Emily told him about her publishing job, her love for books, her fear of disappointing people back home who believed she would do something extraordinary. "That's the thing about extraordinary," Daniel said. "Everyone thinks it means changing the world. But sometimes extraordinary is just choosing a life that feels like yours." Emily felt something shift inside her, as if he had spoken directly to a part of her she rarely acknowledged. They spent nearly an hour talking before Emily forced herself to leave for work. But as she walked out the door, Daniel called after her, "Hey, don't wait for the universe next time. Just come find me." And she did. What started as occasional coffee became frequent lunches, then long evening walks along the Charles River. Emily hadn't expected her new life to include someone like Daniel, but he slipped into her days so naturally that she sometimes wondered if her move to Boston had been about more than just her career. Daniel had an ease about him. He laughed often, talked openly, and made ordinary moments feel strangely important. He encouraged her writing and pushed her gently toward the dreams she kept hidden under practicality. In return, Emily found herself becoming the person he confided in about his fears of failure, his complicated relationship with his brother, his desire to travel the world but never alone. And somewhere along the way, friendship blurred into something deeper. One chilly December evening, they attended a local winter festival together. Strands of lights hung between trees, casting a warm glow over the snow-blanketed park. People milled around sipping hot chocolate, kids threw snowballs, and a small band played holiday songs. Daniel had brought his camera and kept snapping pictures of everything from lanterns to laughing strangers until he turned it on Emily. "Don't," she said, covering her face. "But you look beautiful," he insisted. Emily tossed a handful of snow at him. He dodged it poorly, laughing as it landed on his shoulder. They wandered until they found a quieter corner of the park, away from the crowd. Snowflakes drifted slowly from the sky, resting on Daniel's hair. Emily looked up at him, marveling at how close they had grown. "Can I ask you something?" Daniel said softly. "Of course." "Do you ever think about what this is?" he asked hesitantly. "About us?" Emily felt her breath catch. The question she had been avoiding yet hoping for. "I think about it every day," she admitted. Daniel stepped closer. "And what do you feel?" Emily swallowed, her heart racing. Like you're becoming the best part of my life." Daniel exhaled shakily, relief flooding his face. "Good," he whispered, gently brushing a snowflake from her cheek. "Because you're already the best part of mine." He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away, but Emily didn't move. Their first kiss tasted like cold air and warm possibility, a moment suspended between falling snow and rising hope. But like all real stories, theirs wasn't perfect. Emily's company offered her a major promotion 2 months later, one that required relocating to Chicago. It was everything she had wanted: recognition, advancement, a step toward her dream career. But when she told Daniel, the excitement she expected didn't come. Instead, a heavy silence hung between them. "How long would you be gone?" he finally asked. "A year," she said quietly. "Maybe 2. He nodded slowly. "That's a long time." "I know," Emily whispered. "But it's a huge opportunity." "It is," he agreed. "And I want you to have it. I really do." But the pain in his eyes lingered. The next few days were difficult. Emily felt torn between ambition and love. She had spent years building her career, only to find herself suddenly afraid of losing something far more personal. One night, after hours of thinking, she found Daniel sitting by the river, camera hanging loosely around his neck. He looked up as she approached. "I don't want to lose you," Emily said softly. Daniel's jaw tightened. "I don't want to lose you either." She sat beside him. "Maybe love isn't always about staying in one place. Maybe it's about choosing each other no matter where we are." Daniel let out a shaky breath. "Do you think we can do that?" "I do," she whispered, taking his hand. But only if we both try. Daniel looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. Okay, he said. We'll try. Together. They held each other by the river that night, the city lights reflecting off the water like scattered stars, making a promise built on patience, faith, and something stronger than fear. Emily moved to Chicago 2 weeks later. The distance was hard, lonely nights, missed calls, time zones stretched thin. But they talked every day, even if only for a few minutes. Daniel visited whenever he could, and Emily returned to Boston during holidays. Each reunion was a reminder of why they were fighting for each other. A year passed, then another. Emily grew in her career, learned more about herself, gained confidence, and discovered that success felt sweeter when she shared it with someone who believed in her. Daniel flourished too, selling his photographs, traveling to new places, slowly building the life he had always imagined. When Emily finally returned to Boston at the end of her contract, Daniel was waiting at the station, the same place they had collided years before. He held a single sunflower, her favorite. "You came back," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I always planned to," she replied. "Some love stories don't end, they just take longer routes." Daniel took her face gently in his hands. "Welcome home, Emily." And when they kissed, it felt like the ending and beginning of every chapter she had ever hoped for. Because sometimes love isn't about choosing between dreams and someone's arms. Sometimes love is the thing that makes both possible.